Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've all been doing really well. Today, I want to showcase two of my favorite high-gain 50-watt heads, the Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus and the Ceriatone Molecular. A bunch of you have been requesting this, so let's do it. This isn't going to be one of these kind of videos where it's like which amp is better. It's more an amp appreciation video. I just want to showcase why I love and own both of these great amps. So we're going to start with the Soldano Hot Rod 50 Plus. Long-time subscribers to the channel will know how great this amp sounds and how much I like it. And it's one of those things where when somebody says, what does a Soldano sound like? You just kind of go, well, it just kind of sounds like a Soldano, you know. That's kind of a testament to Mike Soldano's legacy on the amp building game, because his amps have their own thing going on. This amp, if I had to describe it, I would just say it's very articulate, very tight. It's got a great character. It's kind of the sound of a particular era of high gain guitar amplifiers. We're going to start with the overdrive channel with the gain on 2, the bass is at 8, the mids are at 7, the trebles at 5, overdrive at 6, presence at 4. These knobs go to 11. I'm using my Marshall cab with greenbacks, mic'd with an SM57, kind of just off to the cap edge. This is a Hamer Standard, built in the USA in 2008. I've got a Duncan EVH pickup in the bridge position and a Jazz in the neck. Let's just hear some riffs with this thing. So in that clip, I move the gain from 4 to 6 to 8, and it just gets so juicy, but it doesn't fall apart. The other amazing thing about this amp is the mids. Like, the mids are just perfectly voiced for electric guitar. You know, they're not too harsh, they're not too low where it gets too scooped out or anything. You can scoop them out, and you kind of get a rectifier style thing going on. But then as you wind them up, it takes you back to that kind of 80s high gain thing. So the mids in here are just amazing. The gain's so articulate, it's so touch responsive. It's one of those amps where it's kind of brutal in how on you have to be when you play it, because every tiny little inaccuracy and mistake shows up. So that's the Hot Rod 50 Plus. That's why I love that particular amp. Let's hear the Molecular in comparison and in contrast to that. So the Molecular is a totally different beast. It's loosely based off the Cameron Atomica amplifier, which itself is a Jose-style modded Marshall. So basically a JCM 800 with some mods. There are a bunch of switches on here, and there's also some knobs that the Soldano doesn't have. Namely, there is a depth control. There's also a character switch, which controls the power amp response. And there's a control called girth on here, which is a negative feedback control, so we can add more negative feedback and make the response a bit more linear with the amp. So basically we can tighten stuff up by cranking the girth control on there, which sounds fantastic. There's gain, master, treble, middle, and bass. There's a 3-way error switch in the middle. It removes the diode clipping, so it's basically a JCM 800. And there's a 3-way edge switch, which is a bright cap. So we've got that selectable bright cap in there. We've got the selectable diode clipping sections. I really like it with the diode clipping to the left and the edge to the left, so we'll just leave it there. The character switch is also to the left, which is pretty cool. So this is basically doing the Atomica thing. It's basically like, for me, almost my kind of ultimate brown sound style amp. It's not like a one-to-one replica of a Van Halen style thing. This is what I consider a really enjoyable brown sound. Big difference there, which obviously you guys can't experience, but it's the way the amp feels and responds to your playing dynamics. Basically, this is a little bit kind of saggier and squishier and compressed, and overall it's a lot more forgiving, but it just makes you really want to dig in and get that guitar face going on, whereas a Soldano is just super articulate, and it almost kind of has this, like, rigid isn't the right word, it's just very tight. The advantage with the Molecular is that with the depth, girth, and presence control, we can really change the response of the power amp, which is super cool. Like if I turn the girth down and let's say I bring the gain down, but I bring the master volume up, I can then play around, like I can remove depth from the circuit and I can bring the presence up, and it's got way more of like a JCM 800 thing. There are a bunch of other options that I haven't demonstrated on this amp, but you can go and check out my in-depth demo. This is kind of where I like to set it. You can hear that the mid-range response is very different, the low-end response is very different. This thing generally is a little bit more tweakable, whereas a Soldano has this kind of range where it's just like the best at what it does for that kind of thing that you want. Whereas this guy can kind of give you a little bit more range, and it's kind of like my ultimate modded Marshall. I'm sure these two would sound amazing stacked together for some riffage as well, because they kind of complement one another very nicely. But there you go, an amp appreciation. That's why I love both of these amps. They do very different things. They're both high gain monsters. And, you know, for those of us who really, really love and appreciate high gain amplifiers, it's a pretty broad spectrum. There's a lot of diversity in high gain amp tones. If you don't spend a lot of time with high gain amps, you probably listened to this and went, well, it's all super distorted, what are you doing? You can't hear the difference, but you can certainly feel the difference. And if you're used to these, there really are important differences in the gain structure and the way the EQ works, the way they respond to effects in front of them, which I obviously didn't demonstrate here because I'm plugging straight in. But I don't think either of these amps really need too much external stuff to really do what they do well. And yeah, I love both of them. They're both amazing 50-watt amplifiers. I guess the big difference is I probably paid more than twice for this amp what I paid for this one. I mean, Mike Soldano obviously has a long-running reputation and legacy, but the Ceriatone stuff is just incredibly well built, and for the price, I think it's almost unbeatable. So that's why I have both of those amps. I would love to hear from you guys what you thought about these two amps side by side, and if you liked both of them as much as I did. Until next time, you guys stay excellent. I will see you later.